Started. Welcome everyone to the Green Living series. I'm Phyllis Bach, Education Director at T-Town. And although I can't see all of you right now, I did look at the list of participants and I see a lot of familiar names out there in Zoom land. So whatever way we can see you these days, it's nice to know that all of you are out there and participating in an event like this. T-Town and the Croton CAC have been presenting the Green Living series for a number of years, providing information on sustaining healthy communities and the impacts of climate change. Before I turn this over to Janet, I just wanted to give everyone a note about T-Town, an update. Although T-Town's buildings remain closed, our trails are open and have seen much more activity than normal in the past 6 months. So it's very open and active, and we welcome our neighbors and friends to come maybe at off times, not weekends, which seems to get the most traffic. We are currently running outdoor programs for children, families, and adults, including a series we just started this week, Women Take to the Trails, which is an outdoor hiking series for women only. And we also are doing a webinar series called Backyard Wildlife, which has been fairly popular. Coming up in November, on November 4th, will be a mushroom program, mushroom and fungus program by Leon Chernoff, who is we feel our personal guru of mushrooms. He's very entertaining and witty. So if you have a chance, join us on November 4th at 7 p.m. You can find out all that kind of information on our website, of course. And I'm going to stop there, turn it over to Janet, I believe, to introduce our speakers and topic.
Yes. I want to thank you, Phyllis. I want to welcome everyone also to the restart of our Green Living series. I'm so glad that we were able to restart it again. We have a very timely educational program this evening as autumn has arrived and with it falling leaves. As many of you know, CCAC has proposed a revision to the current village code regarding gas-powered leaf blowers. Over the next few years, tonight we are going to present alternatives to using gas-powered leaf blowers. Brian, can I share my screen now?
Yes.
Thank you.
Janet, I believe if you, in the toolbar, you can click to request to share.
I don't know where that would be. Just says
at the bottom, next to the Q&A.
Yeah, it says share screen and it says I can't do it.
Okay, 1 minute, Janet. Try now.
Okay, I got it. Thank you, Brian. Okay, can everybody see it?
Yes.
Thank you. Green Living series, manage fall leaves. This is our agenda for tonight. We want to thank Fiona Mitchell and Dan Delventhal for coming and presenting for us tonight. At the end of their presentations, we will have a question and answer. Please write your questions in the question and answer box and we will read them to you so our panelists can answer them for you. As you know, these are some of the reasons why we have proposed this new regulation. While people were home and working from their house, it became a quality of life issue regarding noise. Also, the air quality of using gas power leaf blowers is greater than using your car, believe it or not. And you can see from this chart up here, the difference. Also, the emissions and the loss of topsoil and the importance of pollinators. I know you are all aware of the insects that live on the leaves. And when we blow them away, we blow away the not only the topsoil, but also the insects. And this is our timeline. Remember, we are only proposing gas-powered leaf blowers. In 2021, May to October, prohibit the gas-powered leaf blowers, year-round education. 2022, January to October, prohibit them. And then in 2023, the year-round ban. And hopefully the education will also help with this initiative. Okay, I'd like to now introduce Fiona Mitchell, who was one of our keynote speakers tonight, and she will assist us with this educational program. Go ahead, Fiona.
Thank you. I'm going to share my screen if that's possible.
Janet, if you can make Fiona, if you click on the 3 dots on her picture, you can make her the host, and that will allow her. There you go.
There it is.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Janet. I'm going to review some of the points that you raised in a little more detail. If you feel like I'm covering ground that's already been well covered, just tell me to move along, because I'm not too familiar what you've all been doing in Croton. So I started Leave Leaves Alone about 9 to 10 years ago, about a year after I started leaf mulching, which I began after my brother had visited us from England in the fall, and he was appalled at all the effort we were all putting into raking our leaves and blowing them and hauling them to the side of the road for the town to pick up. And he said, we just mow over them. So I thought, maybe I should give that a try. And I did. And I couldn't believe how much easier it made my job as managing my leaves. So I was at the same time, I was finishing up my Master Gardener certification and needed a project to complete my certification and develop the Leave Leaves Alone. And in the course of that time, oops, why is my thing not moving? I found out that there was many more benefits to leaf mulching than just saving me time. I found out that it's much better for lawns and gardens in general. It's better for the environment, and it costs less and is a big time saver. So I started looking into it and found out how much effort and money was going into all these towns collecting leaves and removing them to composting facilities. And these numbers are actually pretty old. I'm sure the costs have gone up now. So Bedford spends 2,500 man hours, and that's just in the hamlets of Bedford. We have 3 hamlets, Bedford Hills, Bedford Village, and Katona. Most of Bedford doesn't even receive this service. So we're spending a lot of money for just a few people. And you can see the kind of costs. Look at Scarsdale, 742,000. So $3.2 million a year in Westchester County is spent collecting leaves. There are many other aspects to leaf collection that are not really great. One of the issues is that how they're piled up on sidewalks. They block sidewalks, makes it dangerous for kids going to school. and walkers in general, clogging drains and causing flooding. I'm always seeing our municipal workers clearing the drains. And phosphorus release, this is a really important environmental issue. When leaves decompose, they release phosphorus. And that is a huge negative when it goes down, the phosphorus goes down into the drains. And this is what's causing the algae bloom in our waterways. It causes something called eutrophication, which blocks oxygen from getting into the water. So we lose a lot of plant life, fish life, and also it damages our water sources. New York State actually recognizes this and bans phosphorus being used in fertilizers for much of the year, and also requires leaves to be picked up by municipalities within 4 weeks. But in actual fact, most phosphorus is released within 48 hours of leaves being put out. So it's really something that we should work to avoid. Of course, Janet, you addressed the noise. This is what brings a lot of people to the anti-leaf blower movement. And the noise is really something that is a huge issue. Some people feel it more than others, but those that feel it get very, very stressed out about it. For me, the issue is more about the pollution. Leaf blowers are extremely polluting. Most of them are the backpack leaf blowers are two-stroke engines, which are very fuel inefficient and release a lot of carbon emissions. You referenced the Edmonds study, Janet, that showed that a half hour of leaf blowing with a two-stroke backpack leaf blower is the equivalent of a Ford F-150 truck driving from northern Texas to Anchorage, Alaska. That's the amount of emissions. And that's because we have good guidelines for motor vehicles, but almost none for landscaping equipment. And so they really haven't evolved to be clean users of fuel. The other thing, the other pollution issue is the particulate matter that's blown up. The landscapers generally are not very thoughtful users of leaf blowers, and this is the kind of scene we see a lot actually at this time of year when it's so dry at the moment. I had this on my street last week, and you see it a lot in the summer, of course. Just all sorts of particulate matter, dust, fertilizer, dog feces, all sorts of things being blown up in the air, and it stays up in the air a long time, and it's very, very it's a big health issue, particularly for those with existing health issues, lung issues and stuff. But it also has huge impact on the carcinogens that are blown around. It's a very serious issue, and this has been addressed by the American Lung Association and Sloan Kettering and groups like that. As an environmentalist, it's the environmental issues that really get me upset. Repeated leaf blower use results in looks like this. We get landscapers coming in to a site week after week, and every time they come and remove the leaves, they're also removing a little bit of topsoil. And so the progressive reduction in topsoil is really damaging, and you get a lot of leaf root exposure. And our trees are suffering a lot already as as the climate warms, and there's a lot of stress, and we certainly don't need to be adding to their stress by exposing the leaves. Plants don't need to be stripped clean of leaves. Particularly, I get very upset when I see landscapers blowing leaves out of stuff like pachysandra and other ground cover. You never need to really move leaves out of pachysandra. I have, this actually is pachysandra in my garden. It's under like 4 maple trees. I never remove the leaves. Over the course of the winter, they gradually fall between the pachysandra. If in the spring I see a big pile of leaves sort of stuck on top of some Pachysandra. I just sort of shake them and they go through and they decompose and nourish the soil. And the Pachysandra is extremely healthy. In fact, healthier than I like, because I'm not a big fan of Pachysandra. But you really don't need to remove leaves from around planting beds. You do need to remove them from lawns, and we'll get into that in a bit. But another reason why we don't want to remove leaves from our flower beds, from around shrubs and tree bases, is because there's so much life that needs this leaf litter to survive in. We have birds creating nests in leaf litter, but mostly at this time of year, we've got insects that are using the leaf litter to hunker down for the winter. For example, this is a Luna moth. As you can see from the top, they wrap their cocoon and wraps themselves around with leaves so that they look exactly like leaves. And they hunker down for the winter. And then in the spring, you get this incredible Luna moth, which is about 6 to 8 inches wide, absolutely breathtakingly beautiful moth. And that's just one of the very many kind of insects and moths and butterflies that use leaf litter as habitat for the winter. And it's also really important, that's also a really important food source for our birds, because in the winter, if you'll see the birds sort of scratching around in the leaf litter, and they're looking for all those cocoons and the larvae, and that's their food source in the winter. If we've stripped the leaf litter, we've got nothing for the birds. Birds, the American bird population has suffered dramatically in the last 50 years. We've lost 40% of our birds in total population since 1970. And that sort of coincides with the increased use of pesticides, the lack of, the reduction in habitat, the increase of monoculture agriculture, and the spread of suburbs and homes like ours. Just going back to the importance of leaf litter, as it decomposes, it enriches the soil and really feeds all the life that goes on in the soil. They say that in a handful of soil, there are more living organisms than there are humans on the planet. A good soil is really alive with all sorts of creatures, most of them microscopic, but lots of little centipedes and millipedes and worms and roly-polies and all sorts of things that are playing an essential role in making the soil useful to the plants and things that we want to grow. Another big important thing to know is that our bees, 70% of North American bees nest in the ground. We have, I think in New York, about 450 native bees, and they're not stinging bees, they're not swarming bees, these are solitary bees, and good ground is really important for them. And conversely to popular opinion, our native bees are more important to pollination and our food sources than the non-native honeybees. So we really want to provide habitat for these native bees. Regarding leaf blowers and the pollution that they create, a lot of people suggest that electric equipment is the way to go, and it certainly is better. But organizations like mine, Leave Leaves Alone, we really want people to think about less about blowing the leaves and more about using the leaves and making use of them in our landscapes, and just using our electric leaf blowers on hardscapes to clear driveways and patios and pathways. So the better way to manage fall leaves on our lawns is literally just to mow over them. You want to start mowing just continue mowing like you would in the summer. Just mow over them as they fall. If you have a landscaping service or you do your own yard, just mow once a week. This is early in the season when there aren't too many leaves, and this way you just keep on top of it. This is my part of my yard a week ago. I had a lot of leaves. These are maple and I think cherry trees, and you can see it's a pretty decent leaf fall there. And that is an electric leaf mulch lawnmower. And I don't think I even had to go over them twice. Just mowing, that's one pass through here. You don't get a completely polished, finished look if you go over them once. But anyone who's spent some time mowing a lawn and then goes inside for a glass of water or a cup of tea, you come outside and in the middle of the fall, you've got more leaves fallen. So it's really not worth seeking perfection until right at the end of the season when all the leaves are down and you're doing your final cleanup. And that's when you might really go over your lawn more than once with the lawnmower, or you might employ some other tools, which I'll explain in a bit, to really get that finished look. A lot of people think they have too many leaves to manage. It's just not going to work. But when you mulch leaves, you reduce the volume tenfold. It really is, that is absolutely what happens. And so your leaf management problem becomes a fraction of what you think it is. I actually, in my front yard, don't get enough leaves falling. And I'm such a believer in the nutrients provided by leaves and the fact that they're free. I drag them on a tarp from my neighbor who puts them out on the street and bring them into my front yard. Here we were just mulch mowing them so that I could actually add nutrients to my flower bed. So as you can see, we're just going over them. He's tipping the mower so it doesn't choke out. But once they were pretty chopped up, then we would just put them. Oops, hold on, go to the next slide. Sprinkle them onto the to my front flower bed, and that's what it looks like. I have never used fertilizer on that bed, only leaf mulch. And I think it's pretty effective. The other thing you can do with leaves, and what you should do, is leave them around the base of trees. Trees shed the leaves, and as nature has designed it, they should decompose right there, go into the soil right there, and then the tree's roots can use those nutrients to complete the cycle of life and go through the whole process again. If we're removing the leaves from the base of the trees, we're really removing their whole source of nutrients. And a lot of people often wonder about pine needles. They make, in the top right corner there, they make fantastic leaf mulch, and actually it's very attractive too. So you can just put that around the base of trees. This is a landscaper I worked with when I first started Leave Leaves Alone 9 years ago. And the first year he started leaf mulching, he was just like blown away at how it transformed his business. Not all landscapers are as open-minded, and it has been a real challenge for us to get them to take a look at the leaf mulching method and change their ways. But he demonstrated this pile of leaves that we just dumped on a hardscape, and that's the resulting leaf mulch that ended up. So you can really see how it gets reduced. So it's also just much more efficient than blowing the leaves, because once you mow the leaves, they've gone. They're not going to come back. yesterday, I heard loads of landscapers, blowing leaves, putting them neatly on the roadways for the town to pick up whenever they can. Meanwhile, we had that huge windstorm yesterday, and all those leaves are blown all over the place, right back to where they came from or onto neighbors' lawns. And the landscapers are going to have to do the same thing all over again, using those leaf blowers, polluting the neighborhoods all over again. When you mow the leaves into the lawn, they are gone. They're not going to blow anywhere. Landscapers, professional landscapers use varying techniques. This is a deck trap. He's actually, I don't know if you can see my cursor here, he's created this little flap that he can close, and that is so the leaves don't come out the side chute. They get trapped in the mower deck so that they are, they go through the rotation multiple times and are chopped even into smaller pieces. This here is a Vulcher, which you can buy at big landscaping stores. It's an attachment also to the side chute, and it has the same effect. It will make sure that nothing comes out that is any bigger than the size of a dime. So your mulched leaves just fall between the leaf blades of your grass and decompose over the course of the winter. You can also use a catcher that they've got here. This would be used like at the end of the season for the final cleanup when you really want to get rid of all your leaves. Another technique that some landscapers are using are this sweeper. This one on the right can be attached to a ride-along mower or a stand-up mower. And it's really effective for scooping up acorns and sticks and stuff like that. But you can also use it to get that completely polished look, and it'll pick up all the leaves after you've mulch mowed. And there's also there are several on the market. This one on the left is a push one that a homeowner might use. These I really see their value is picking up acorns, because those can be a pain to pick up. You really do need to use mulching blades. Most mowers that are purchased now are mulching mowers. They come with mulching blades. This one on the left is a flat blade, and it has this little lift in it, and that's designed to encourage the leaves to stay up in the mower deck for multiple rotations, so you get a smaller mulch. The red blade on the right is a gator blade, and you can see it has the teeth on one side and then the sharp edge on the other. So you can cut the grass and the leaves, and then the teeth will chop up leaves. It's good for like oak leaves, or if people find that they've got too many leaves and a really deep leaf litter, then you want to get one of these gator blades. Be very careful when buying these. Some of them are badly designed. You want to have the blades so that when they rotate, they're facing the oncoming leaves and not facing away from them, because those don't work at all. You have to have the blades sort of confronting the leaves. And we have details about that on our website. Other tools, I've got the gator blades and the mulch gate and the Vulcher. This red thing on the bottom left is a leaf mulcher or chipper, where you just feed the leaves, and it's kind of like a weed whacker. You could also just use a weed whacker in a trash can. That'll have the same effect, and you collect the chopped leaves. I don't really recommend that. I used one for a couple of years. They are incredibly noisy. I find it much easier and quicker to just go over leaf piles with my mower. The leaf vacuum shredder is a really good tool for very small properties and works very well. Of course, there's the rake and the sweeper that I mentioned. And, we shouldn't forget Mother Nature. And by that, I mean composting. Leaves, particularly maple leaves, are a perfect ratio of nitrogen to carbon that you need for decomposition for compost, and a great way to start composting. You can just collect them in a pile like this in like chicken wire or something. Personally, I just put them in a big pile, and they will decompose without doing anything. It'll take less than a year if it's just plain leaves, as long as you've got enough moisture and you turn the pile from time to time. You can also put leaves in your regular compost pile if you're composting kitchen waste. It's a great asset to that pile. And don't forget to turn your pile. Landscapers sometimes just catch the leaves in the lawnmower, and then they'll you use the chopped up leaves for a compost pile. Chopped up leaves will compost more quickly than whole leaves. And so we all know the advantages of compost. But when you're leaf mulching, mulch mowing, you're effectively composting in place. And what that does, as the leaves decompose, not only are they adding nutrients to the soil, but they're also improving the soil structure, which helps with drainage. It helps with especially in a lawn, turf grass has roots that are not very strong, and if you give them good soil structure that they can really penetrate, they can get a little deeper, because they generally turf grass is shallow rooting. And if you get them to root a little more deeply, then they're going to be more resilient to drought. Good soil structure also helps with water pooling. You get much better drainage. So it's a huge advantage in that way too. And of course, if you're adding organic matter to your soil, you're really helping your plants just be more robust and better protected against disease. Dr. Elaine Ingham is a very eminent soil scientist and a huge advocate for this kind of use of leaves. The other advantage of using your own leaves is that you're not inviting any pests into your property that might come in with contaminated mulch. A lot of wood chips and mulch is developed from trees that have died, and we don't know how they've died, and there is a risk of bringing in diseases to your property. So use your own leaves. As I've grown more informed about this, I don't mulch my leaves on my flower beds and my vegetable beds. I just leave them whole because I want to offer that habitat for insects and butterflies and things, and also somewhere for the birds to scratch around in the winter and find good food. So I just leave the whole leaves. And that's going to be fine. Your plants are not going to have any trouble coming up in the spring, as long as the leaf litter isn't more than 3 or 4 inches deep. Your spring ephemerals will be fine. Your perennials will definitely be fine. And they might even smother some of the annual weeds that are not so robust. If you end up with a deeper leaf litter in the spring, which you might after leaves have been blown around and stuff, then you want to thin them out a bit. And that's what I do. There's a certain part of my yard where they get really deep, and in the spring I go in and I take a few inches of them off and add them to my compost pile. But not everybody likes that look, and they want a little more tidy look, and so you can mulch the leaves and use them as your winter protection. This is tidier. Some people will do this, and then if they really want, the wood mulch to be brought in, you put a thin layer of that on top, and then you've really got a good protective layer that looks maybe exactly is what the client likes. The other thing we encourage people to do is go with the sort of more wild look in your backyard where people aren't going in the winter, and just make it nice and tidy in the front. And then in the spring, you can also mulch those leaves in the spring. You want to wait until the temperature, soil temperature is at least like 50 degrees consistently, because at that time the insects are beginning to wake up and you know, get out of the leaf litter. But you can chop up your extra leaves and use them as mulch too, and I think it's a very pretty look. Of course, if you have a woodland near you and you don't want to mulch mow your leaves, or you don't want them on your flower beds, you know, just put them in the woods. Don't have the litter getting feet deep, because you don't want to smother the trees. But go back in a year or two and dig around, and you'll find that you've got incredibly fabulous compost under there. And then this is what leaf compost looks like. It's really rich. It feels beautiful, smells great, and you can add it to lawns, to perennial beds, to your container gardens, and obviously you want to add at least 4 inches to your vegetable gardens. Lawns generally need about ½ an inch of compost a year, and it's actually a pain to sprinkle compost on lawns. It's time consuming, and there's no really easy way to do it unless you mulch mow your leaves, and then you don't even have to do it because you're composting at the same time. So that's what I really love about leaf mulching, is you're enriching your soil at the same time. And of course, leaf compost is free, so there's always that. This is my front yard. As I mentioned, I'm nuts, so I bring in leaves from the neighbors, and this just shows this. None of these leaves fell on my front yard, and then I just mowed it. This was before I got my electric mower with my Sears gas mower, and as you can see, they mulched in really well. The other thing, about 3 years after I started mulch mowing this part of my yard, I noticed that the drainage improved considerably. I used to get, after heavy rain events, I used to get big pooling in the middle here, and now I don't get any of that. Actually, now I don't get anything, because I've converted most of this lawn to flower beds to provide more habitat for pollinators. But and I make good use of the neighbors' leads there too. And just as an add-on, we're really trying to get people to think, rather than doing a fall cleanup, just letting fall do its job and don't clean up, because our fall gardens and winter gardens can provide really good habitat for winter wildlife that stays up here in the winter. If you leave your echinacea and your goldenrods and your black-eyed Susans up through the winter, you will almost guaranteed to get goldfinch coming into your garden, and it's so wonderful to see them. You'll get thrushes or wood thrushes and robins scratching around in the leaf litter looking for bugs. You just get a whole lot of life in your garden, rather than the sterile bare lawn environment that you know so many of us have done for so long. So we really urge you not to clean up, and just let everything be and enjoy nature, and enjoy being part of restoring nature. As I mentioned, the birds have suffered as their habitat has declined, and as we've all been using so many pesticides and artificial fertilizers. And really our yards are nature's last best hope, as Doug Tallamy would say. He's an entomologist from the University of Delaware that is really a good advocate for biodiversity in our backyards. Because we've all, over the years, suburbia has grown, we've developed lawns, we've brought in plants from Asia and Europe that our insects and birds are not familiar with. Insects can't grow on them. They can't raise the larvae can't survive on them. Without insects, we don't have birds. And so our whole ecosystem is really suffering. And if we start to respect nature and invite nature back into our yards, we can really play a part in restoring habitat for wildlife. And I'm certainly doing that in my yard, and I'm finding it extremely rewarding. So I'm also involved with the organization Healthy Yards. We have a really great website that I urge you to go on and see how you can be part of this regenerative landscaping movement. We also are on Facebook and Instagram. We'd love to see you there. And Leave Leaves Alone is my website dedicated to leaf mulching and ways of managing leaves. So please take a look at that. Also there's tons of, let's see, this is there's tons of YouTube videos. This is one I made 9 years ago when I started this campaign, and I don't believe there was another leaf mulching video on YouTube. Not that I was the first to invent it. A lot of people have been doing it all this time, but now there are, I don't know, hundreds of leaf mulching videos and loads of professional landscapers and homeowners showing how they manage their leaves. And so, you know, I urge you to go on YouTube and just put in leaf mulching and watch some of the videos. And I think you'll find it literally is as easy as mowing over your leaves. I hope that that you'll join the movement, and I'm going to hand over to Dan, who is very much a part of that movement.
Wow, that was a fantastic presentation. Thank you, Fiona. That was great.
Yes, thank you, Fiona.
Thank you.
It was fabulous.
Who knew, you know, that land care would become so important. You hear Doug Tallamy talking, the guy you referred to, and he talks about, well, you know, the scientists are saying if we can't get private property owners on board to have 70% native plants, our entire food web is going to collapse. And so that's the import of what you're talking about. It's really, and well done. Yeah, you get the message across great. And I learned a little bit watching the video as well. I appreciate that. And I had no idea when I got into this as a hobby in 2006. I just hated the noise, and I thought it was silly, all the gasoline consumption. But the more I learned, the more I realized it's just a bunch of pollution, terrible pollution. 10% of our air pollution nationwide, because gasoline is 10 to 20 times more polluting per gallon in the small engines than in a car. So I do have a slide deck. Too many words, not enough pictures. I really loved your presentation. Let me get that going here. Let's see if I can share my screen. Right.
Fiona, I think you need to
I don't seem to be able to do anything. Oh, here we go.
I'm sharing the screen.
Yeah, you are.
Beautiful.
Okay, there you go. Thank you.
All right, and I can even share computer sound. How exciting. All right, let's see. That's there. Okay. Okay. Well, my part here is to talk about how MowGreen avoids the pollution and noise. And we avoid tons of pollution and noise, and we've been doing it since 2006. And really our initial mission was about combating climate change with the amount of greenhouse gases that are associated with lawn care. Are we advancing? There we go. Come on. There, that works. So I just mentioned that 5 to 10% of our air pollution. So getting the gas off the grass was our first mission. But we have a second mission, which is less lawn and more food, less lawn mowing, more food growing. And then more recently, with the help of missionaries like Fiona and events like Doug Tallamy's speeches, learning about how important it is to have no invasives. Everywhere I turn, I see fields, forests filled with things like garlic mustard or Japanese stilt grass. It's a big problem. And of course, the imported plants have been so popular. There's things like barberry. There's a Japanese barberry. It's thorny. It creates more mouse habitat, increases ticks. But you made the case for native plants quite well in your presentation. So we're regional. It's funny. We've been kind of following people who really care going back, and it's not a great strategy for running a business and making a profit. But it's a mission-based business, and so we serve 13 towns, and we drive around a lot. But the average lawn, the amount of pollution created using gasoline devices on the average lawn is about 4 tons per year, 4 metric tons per year. But for a single mowing visit, it's like driving a car 300 miles, depending on the size of the lawn. That's probably a quarter acre, third of an acre. So if we drive 60 miles or 100 miles in one day to avoid the equivalent emissions of 2,000 or 3,000 auto miles, then we've gained a lot. And even though it's more difficult to run a business that way, it can be a logistics issue. But we're doing it. We're in Katona, we're in Bedford, Pound Ridge, we're in Rye, we're in Greenwich, Connecticut, we're in New Canaan, Connecticut. We go all the way to New Haven, Connecticut. We're based in Fairfield, and so we want to grow these territories so we can localize the equipment and gear and further reduce our travel time. So it's all electric and manual lawn service. And we do a lot of education and advocacy. I'll take every opportunity I can to help out tonight. I tried to help the folks in Larchmont when they were working on their groundbreaking ordinance recently. I helped with the town of Bedford with theirs, which was 18 months in the making. And so we're always trying to reduce smog, greenhouse gases. That was our original mission. And what we're doing now is we're avoiding 6,000 metric tons of greenhouse gases every year, taking care of about 150 customers spread across 13 towns. And we're growing rapidly. So the rate we're at now is we're avoiding 600 metric tons of carbon and other greenhouse gases. That's like taking 120 cars off the road. So there's a lot of ground to be gained. So everything we do is electric. Some of it's manual. We charge batteries with solar when we can. If the sun's not shining, we have elected for 100% renewable energy. That's something well known, I think, in Westchester County. There's been some really great deals set up, and many people are in this 100% renewable area, which I commend you all for. And we realize we haven't gone totally electric on our vehicles due to range and cost of ownership. And I'm an old finance guy, so I'm always looking at cost of ownership and return on investment. The ROI is super high on an electric mower. Cost of ownership's really low, actually. But when it comes to the vehicles, it still makes sense to make a small concession in a sea of transgressions, and that is use a little gasoline in the vehicles, but we buy carbon credits to zero that out. So we're one of the very few carbon balanced companies in the world. And of course, with each new customer, we take a car off the road from an emissions perspective. So even though we're really just carbon balanced, it looks like we're carbon negative because we're avoiding so much pollution. And we're partnered with Pollinator Pathways and the Aspetuck Land Trust, and we've won awards for pollution reduction, because what you're working on is the front line, the worst offender, the gas leaf blower. It's the most polluting. It's a two-stroke engine, and that was reviewed quite well in the previous slide. But as far as we're concerned, there's no reason to do anything using gas, any of the equipment. So all our mowers, hedgers, edgers, trimmers, chainsaws, aerators, dethatchers, sprayers, spreaders, snow blowers, blowers, all battery powered or manual. And we work with the industry leader, an American, US-based company, MowGreen, for the mowers. And Ego is pretty good. They have a good prosumer line and commercial line. We still like some of the Works trimmers because they're kind of cool. They have swivel heads and wheels, and you can make really nice lines, edges for people who like to detail their properties. And of course, we know that all the electric gear is quieter, just not the leaf blowers. The leaf blower is the big win. You know, when I hear a leaf blower, well, when anyone hears a leaf blower, it's possible that their hearing could be damaged. It's probable that their blood pressure could be raised. So we have we do a lot without gasoline, for sure. Now this is an interesting look. Let's see if this works. See if the computer sound is actually shared. Well, I have a hyperlink here. Oh, no? I'll be darned. That did not work. Let's see if I can. Let's see. Well, here's well, you've seen a lot of the tools, so this might be a little boring, but I just, we've got, let's look at photos. We are in photos. Let's see. Let's go there one more time real quickly. Something I did just the other day, lawn restoration. Yeah, here we go. So.
Hi, Dan Delventhal, MowGreen, clean and serene, no gasoline. Today we're doing 3 things at once with an electric tractor / mower. We're doing aeration, bag mowing, and dethatching. This lawn is mostly crabgrass. We're pulling it up, catching it in the bag, aerating, preparing for overseeding. Thank you for joining me.
Cool. Did that work?
Yes.
All right. Good, good. Yeah. Doesn't look like PowerPoint to me. Let's see if we click that. There we are. Okay. So that's just a look at being innovative. People wanted grass in that lawn, but it was all crabgrass, and we didn't get them there. That was our first visit there, And so everything we do, I mean, it's we've figured out ways to even spread compost for people who want to top dress with compost, using that mower like an electric tractor, and using a tow behind compost spreader, which just works off of the wheel drive. And I've got videos of that on Instagram and our Facebook page as well. So we really hate the gas leaf blowers, and you know, we know all the problems with them. So what do? We use electric leaf blowers, and the electric leaf blowers have come around. There is no reason not to use electric leaf blowers. When you consider the detriments that we suffer at the hands of gas leaf blowers with the noise and the pollution and the power that electric leaf blowers now have, it's a no-brainer, and it should be legislated. So we still use the prosumer lines. We really haven't. We have some commercial gear when it comes to trimmers and blowers and weed whackers, but even just the prosumer lines that you can get, like the Ego products at Home Depot or Amazon. Well, now it's Lowe's. Home Depot, as I understand it, got fired, and Lowe's is picking up the Ego line. Who knows? But a $300 unit handheld leaf blower is 650 cubic feet per minute, CFM. And most gas backpack blowers are 500 to 800 CFMs, maybe as high as 1,000 CFMs. But everybody knows you shouldn't be using the top end of that power anyways. You don't want to hold the nozzle near the ground, pointing straight at the ground, and blow even 650 CFM, because you're going to lose topsoil and make particulate matter. But the 650 CFM is pretty powerful. You can aim that at a pine cone across a swimming pool cover, and get that pine cone off the swimming pool cover. It's pretty amazing. So, and we already know we shouldn't be moving piles of leaves with leaf blowers. So I like the fact that you've got the education component in your program, in your proposed program. If and when, and I know there are times in Stamford, as an example, where the best thing we can do is just aim those blowers and move some of the leaves to the edge. Although the more I've thought about it, the more I will try to be sure that we mulch mow them along the way, and there should be nothing at the edge of the street. But in Stamford, they just put them in rows and pick them up. I did not know about how fast the phosphorus release from the leaf piles. That's incredible. But so if you're trying to get extra force, and you shouldn't need more force, you could take one of these well-balanced 650 CFM leaf blowers in each hand, and now you've got 1,300 CFM of power, and it costs $600. It's so there's no excuse to keep using these gas leaf blowers. Too loud, too polluting. The electrics are inexpensive. Now, some people want to see all the blowers eliminated, and I just think that ultimately that would be good. You know, sweepers when you need perfection, and mulch mowing, and wise management and composting on site, good thing. But I don't think you can change the lawn care companies and the economics of it quickly enough by just going cold turkey with no blowers at all. So they're useful tools, as Fiona mentioned, on hardscapes and driveways and patios for nice cleanup. And we promote mulch mowing. I did notice we started mulch mowing more and more in the last couple of years, 2-3 years. And it, to my amazement, the amount of time spent doing fall cleanup has gone down dramatically. And the environments are healthier. And so we try to get people to keep some whole leaves in their beds, because that's where the life is. And then we do try to mulch mow into the yard as much as possible, and then use the excess in the beds. So we feed the soil, reduce the bulk. We're promoting mulch mowing all the time. And it's interesting, toward the end of the season, I've heard, lawn care trainers and a lot of places I've seen on the internet have said, well, you cut your grass short in the early spring and you cut it short in the late fall. And in the early spring, it promotes growth upward, and in the fall, it promotes root growth down and inward. And it just so happens that when you're mulch mowing, if you set the mower blades lower, it does a more effective job of mulch mowing. So when we finish out our season, we like, if you have good grass and you mow it around 3.5 to 4 inches, it crowds out weeds, and it's a better way to go. And that's how we roll during the season. But towards the end of the season, we'll go down 3 1/4, 3 inches, and that makes the mulch mowing go better. We might even go 2 3/4 inches for that final mow, and watch those leaves disappear. Now the batteries are a lot more powerful than they used to be. They last longer. And again, when you're mulch mowing, you shouldn't be using a lot of battery power anyways. Cleaning off hardscape is quick. You know, the mowing and trimming of a lawn is, typical lawn might be, let's say, a half an hour of mowing and up to a half an hour of trimming and light edging. But the blow off of the hardscape is 5 or 10 minutes. So as a percentage, it's very little time required. So I guess you may use more battery power in your trimmers and hedgers. But batteries are pretty powerful. A lot of these tools have larger ones. So your typical most inexpensive tool will come with a 2.5 amp battery, and that may run 5 or 10 minutes, but you can get 5 amp and 7 amp, and those can operate tools for 20 minutes, 30 minutes. And if you invest in the commercial gear, they have batteries that are larger that you can wear in a backpack, and those can go for a long time. And I do have a backpack blower and multi-head tools for hedging, trimming things with batteries that last an hour. Somebody was trying to take down a 1/2 acre of Phragmites, invasive plants in Darien, and I used one of those backpack battery multi-head tools with a metal disc trimmer, and I was able to trim that Phragmites down to the ground in about 4 hours, maybe 5 hours. And I did a little battery charging, but I had two batteries. And so really, you don't need gasoline to do anything in lawn care anymore. So how do you keep them charged? If you've got some small batteries and some small tools and you burn them out, maybe it's leaf season, maybe you're trying to manage those leaves, move them around a little more than usual, get them maybe sometimes into rows for mulch mowing. You can, I've noticed out of well over 100 customers that I can only think of 2 who don't like us to charge batteries at their property. And it only costs about 15 cents to charge a pretty powerful tool battery. So it's negligible. The cost is negligible. And so a fully battery powered lawn care company is certainly possible. And we also carry around, well, we haul around these larger mowers. Often we don't use all the juice in those mowers. So with an inverter, we can charge right from that mower battery in motion in between stops. And further, we now have a van equipped with not only an inverter, but a backup battery so that we can charge while we're in motion from the alternator, and we can also charge from the backup battery when we're sitting. So that's quite a powerful thing. It just so happens it's an old news van, and it also has a generator under the hood, so it's a 7K generator with a catalytic converter. That's kind of cool. They used to cover the Olympics with this van, but it's thousands of dollars worth of wiring and capability. Excuse me. I can plug the van in and just keep everything in the van and charge it. It's phenomenal. So no reason to use gasoline for anything in lawn care. And the economics are actually positive. The return on investment for a gas-powered mower is, depending on what part of the country you're in. Out here, I would say it's a 3 or 4 year payback, or in other words, you, I would say probably 20–30% ROI on the investment. Where are you going to get that kind of return on investment? So a little bit on the history of the business. We did start in 2006. I invented a kit called the reel-to-reel gang kit. There was no hydrogen and there was no electric. And so we figured out how to push 3 reel mowers at a time. There's a video on our website where we actually mowed 4 acres in 95-degree heat because we're desperate for attention. Anyway, we evolved. We did this gang kit of reel mowers, and then we converted combustion engines. We had a friend with a partner with an electrolyzer making hydrogen locally. GM had the other one just like his. And then we finally got into the electric business probably in 2013. We had these small residential mowers, and finally in 2015 we went to medium-sized commercial mowers, and then in 2017 we started getting the larger commercial-sized mowers. We actually we don't use these 5 and 6 foot wide mowers. We use the stand-on 4 foot mowers because they have a smaller transportation footprint and they're more agile and they fit through more gates. I guess at some point, if we had to mow really big, wide areas, it'll pay to get a 5 foot or 6 foot unit and haul those around a little bit too. So like I said, we have an invention for people who are real purists and don't want to use any power, the reel-to-reel gang kit. The only problem with reel mowers is they don't mulch leaves very well. So as I mentioned, everything we do, mowing, trimming, edging, pruning, sawing, blowing, cleanup, aeration, dethatching, top dressing, spraying, all possible with battery equipment. And I always have something on the organic business because we want to eliminate chemicals and all that stuff. And that's and we do work closely with people like Fiona and Dan Mabe, Jamie Banks, and some other great people and some great customers. We always learn from our customers. This is our growth plan, and we have improved. We've increased revenue. We've grown 30% year over year for 7 years straight, which is growth is painful. So it's been a hustle. I'm probably one of the hardest working people I've ever met. And so please feel free to contact me anytime. MowGreen.com, easy website to remember. And we also have our own version of Dan Quixote, Man of MowGreen's Impossible Dream. And that's it. I look forward to questions and answers, and I really appreciate a chance to help out with this tremendous initiative for a better, healthier environment.
Thank you so much, Dan and Fiona, for joining us this evening. And yes, we do have a fair amount of questions for the two of you, believe it or not. So without further ado, I'll begin with the questions. Some of these are posted today and some of them we received through the Village website. The first question through the Village website was, how much is too much mulching in place on the lawn? Sometimes the leaf cover is very thick and we don't want to smother the grass. What should we do?
Yes, you don't want to smother the grass. It's okay to have a thin film of mulched leaves on the grass when you're finished. If it's any deeper, I would say then 1 inch then that's when you want to get your rake or, God forbid, your leaf blower, and just distribute it, spread it around, ideally push it into a perennial bed or around the base of a shrub or a tree, so it's not sitting on the lawn.
And that leaves me, thank you, Fiona, to the next question. I have a small yard with big trees. I can put some under the rhododendrons and mow others. What do I do with the rest of the leaves?
Well, there are some yards that are too small for all the leaves, but that's very, very few. I think if you remember that one of the slides I had showed how once you mow the leaves or mulch them down, how much they reduce in volume. So, and then that reduces, that 10% reduces again to almost nothing once it becomes compost. So I think even if you can mulch mow your leaves so that you do get that reduction in volume, and then find a small corner of your yard to pile that excess mulch that you don't want to put under your shrubs and trees. If you can find a small area to compost, you'll find that reduces again by at least 75%, and then you'll end up with a small amount of compost. It is really extraordinary how much raw material you need to create a relatively small amount of compost. And then once you've got that, you can remove that by the next season and start the process over again. I really have only seen one home where I agreed with the homeowner that there were too many leaves.
But with that reduction, it's a beautiful thing because there's so little leaf litter. If you really need to, let's say, bring it to the neighbor's house who appreciates it or needs it, then it is a lot easier. We encourage people to just allow us to mulch mow even if it's thick, and then we can use blowers sometimes just to put the excess off into the beds. And we are always encouraging people to at least make a pile in the corner. So that makes a lot of sense what you're saying. And it's amazing. I've got a little recessed area in the back of my house, so I will often skip the trip to the composting facility. We're fortunate to have one here in town where we can have debris turned back into mulch or compost. And it keeps, my wife, every year she says, you can't put any more leaves there. There's no room. And I say, yes, I can. It keeps shrinking. So if you mulch them, they get smaller. And then when you compost them, they shrink again. Yeah, it's funny.
Go ahead, Dan.
I was just going to say, yeah. So if you can set up a little fence, a little circular fence or square to just pile leaves in, or just pile them. Yeah, it's a good way to go.
Thank you. A lot of questions that people around town have been asking me is the cost. Dan, I guess this would go to you. How much, how expensive is it for you to switch over to electric or powered blowers? Because, go ahead.
It's interesting. There's two questions. Business people have to face two things. One is capital needs, and then two is actual costs. Because when you buy new equipment, you get the benefits of write-offs for depreciation, and that new equipment is going to have a lower cost of ownership and a higher return on investment. However, you still need the capital, or you still need to be willing to take the risk to borrow the money. So unfortunately, there's this there's a lot of pressure in lawn care. It's a place where a lot of it appears to be unskilled labor, and there's no differentiation other than price. Of course, quality of service matters. More and more people realize, well, it's more than just quality of service and mow and blow. There's knowledge of plants. I mean, if somebody's going to weed, you have to know you have to know your plants, to know your customers' preferences. Not all plants are weeds to the same people, and you have to understand organic. It's helpful to understand organic methods, and then it's also important to know more about plants and to recognize invasives, things like that. But it's super competitive. People look at it as so the consumers drive the prices down, the costs down. There's a lot of people entering the market because it's easy. Anyone with a mower in a garage can get into the business. But sometimes the Consumer Protection Department helps out in Westchester, and they collect a dossier and they a couple $100 a year, and they try to keep people vetted for the consumers. But it's still difficult. I feel I'm empathetic because landscapers are under extreme pressure. They can't afford to change a thing, and they don't want to. They need to get out there and run fast, and at the end of the day, they're lucky if there's anything left over. Unless they're really specialized and they have some kind of unique angle, or they're massive scale, lawn care people barely earn a living. So if you tell somebody who barely earns a living and may not have a lot of backing that he needs to get a new $300 device or a $3,000 device or even $30,000 device, it may not happen. But with some education, you know, a lot of these landscapers may understand they should reinvest because it's the right thing to do, not only for the world, not only for their customers, but also for their businesses, because the demand is growing. I stopped doing much marketing. I'll do social media and stuff, and I'll speak whenever I can. But in many cases, people are looking for this. They realize we're in a global warming death spiral. We can't afford what happened last year. You know, with a 3 or 4% increase in global warming greenhouse gases. We can't survive. But it's not going to cost a lot of money to get the new gear because it's a capital investment. So if you're an accountant, you've got a balance sheet is one thing. So you're just shifting money on your balance sheet. On your profit and loss statement, it doesn't turn into a lot of. There aren't a lot of costs associated with it. There's capital associated with it. So anyone who understands accounting and finance can think about it and say, well, you know, if I can afford to raise the money to buy the new equipment, then I'll have a better business, and my workers will be better off. The business will be better off in the long run, and I'll save money. But it's just hard to get there.
If I could jump in though, also, Dan, I think you're talking about converting an entire business model to electric. And I think at this point, we're really asking landscapers to just switch out their leaf blowers to electric. So
yes,
the investment cost is much smaller. And
much.
It's really marginal because they're buying new gas blowers anyway every 2 or 3 years. Mm-hmm. So instead of investing in the gas blower, they're buying the electric blower, which isn't necessarily more expensive, although they may need more batteries, granted, but then they do have less inputs. They have no gasoline and no oil inputs. So I think, I don't know if you've worked with Dan Mabe of AGSA. He has some cost projections on at, you know, which point it becomes profitable to switch over. And it's really, for just switching over the leaf blowers, it's not that big a deal. And the other important thing to consider, you know, people say, oh, the batteries don't last very long enough. what we're trying to get landscapers to do is stop using the leaf blowers all the time, which is what they do. They get off the truck, they pull out a lawnmower, a leaf blower, and a weed whacker, and away they go. So what we want them to do is get out of the truck and yeah, mow the lawn. They don't even need the weed whacker, but you know, just use the tools differently.
Yeah. By the way, okay. I apologize. I got a little carried away there. I take back what I said. I really don't have a lot of. I have empathy for lawn care people in general. It's a tough business, and I understand why they resist change because they're scrambling. But it's a no-brainer. It really is a non-issue. There's no excuse for them not to abandon the gas leaf blowers because they're the worst offenders in the tool set. And they're the easiest things to replace, and it's inexpensive. And it's so, yeah, I kind of, let me take a step back. In terms of converting an entire business, that's another story. But the leaf blower should be a no-brainer. Leaf blowers.
Right now we're only proposing the gas, you know, well, that's what it is. Okay, thank you. Next question. A lot of the presentation dealt with the cost and enviro impact of leaf collection. Is CAC proposing to eliminate collection as well? If not, why? We have proposed it. At this point, I don't see it happening in the near future. We have we have accumulated the costs from other villages who do not pick up or vacuum the leaves, that they just go back to just picking up bag leaves. But we're focusing on the gas-powered blowers right now, but we will continue that discussion with the village because that is very dear and near to our heart. Does anybody on CAC want to contribute to that answer? No? Okay. There has been a proposal to exclude the golf course from leaf blower ban because the CAC is impressed by their environmental practices. I'm going to stop right there. One thing people in the village do not realize, the golf course is not entirely in the village. A good chunk of it is in the town. Even if we were to ask them to regulate their gas-powered leaf blowers, they would have to do it in just the village portion of it. And where the boundary is still around houses, and they may get phone calls saying that they're blowing their leaf blowers and they're in the town part of it. We can't regulate the town of Cortland. We can only regulate the village of Croton. So at this point, that was the main reason for us to eliminate the golf course. Also, if you ever want to go see what they are doing up there with their environmentally friendly equipment, feel free. We had a wonderful tour of the place. Can the experts explain what the environmental benefits of golf courses are and how they remediate all these supposedly really bad impacts of gas-powered blowers? Can anybody answer that question?
I can just say that we didn't address the question of golf courses overall and their environmental contribution and impact. What we addressed was their use of gas-powered leaf blowers, and they use it fewer minutes per year than very, very small properties in town. And so on the one hand, and on the other hand, they have a business, unlike most other businesses in town, that depends on that grass being groomed carefully. So I think that's what our comment about that was speaking to. And as Janet said, I think they are more than willing to share a lot of information about their environmental practices in terms of upkeep.
I should say in the town of Bedford, where we do have leaf blower restrictions in effect for the last 2-3 years, The golf courses also have an exemption for that very reason. But we do find that they're extremely responsible with their leaf blower use, and in fact also as stewards of the land, given the business that they're in.
Thank you. Yeah, we had looked at that Bedford's golf course thing when we were coming up with our plan, as a matter of fact. And they, you know, we just have the one and they have a few more than us. So we did defer to Bedford also. What is the amount of noise of a mower being used to mulch versus a blower? What is the environmental pollutant difference between a mower used to mulch and a blower that is not a two-stroke blower? So noise and environmental pollutants and for mowers versus blowers.
I can't give you the exact numbers, but it is an established fact that both two-stroke and four-stroke leaf blowers are more noisy and penetrate buildings more. So they would get into offices and people's homes, that noise, more than a leaf blower, which is a lower pitch. As far as the difference between a mower, the environmental pollution between, so you're talking about a four-stroke blower and a four-stroke mower. Probably about the same, but the difference is if you leaf mulch with a mower, it's more efficient way of managing your leaves, because you don't have to move leaves from one corner of a property to another. You're just eliminating the leaves. And also you're cutting the lawn at the same time, which is something you're going to be doing anyway. So you're going to be using the mower anyway. So it's effectively doing two jobs in one.
And of course, you're not stripping your topsoil or creating the particulate matter, and you're feeding the soil.
Yeah.
And you're not creating phosphorus runoff. And so it's sensible. Although I don't like the thought of gasoline mowers doing it, but it's a step in the right direction. The noise is still, I don't know the numbers either, but the noise is still really abrasive in the four-stroke engines, you know, the mowers. I mean, when those mowers and rolling lot sweepers, which are the 2000 CFM blowers, but they're not two-stroke, they're four-stroke. When those are fired up, it's pretty annoying.
It's definitely,
yeah. It's just not as bad as when they wind up those two-stroke backpacks, and you just want to go remove them from their hands. You know.
Well, we've hit the witching hour of 8:30. There's just one more. It's more of a comment. I'm so encouraged and fired up by this presentation. I'll speak to my gardener and would love to make this an issue in our town, Scarsdale, to get them to ban gas blowers year-round. Thank you all for your expertise and positivity.
That's very nice.
Yeah, that was a very nice comment. And we also would like to thank you both for your expertise and positivity. This has been a wonderful evening. You were so informative. I learned so much from this presentation from the two of you. Thank you so much. Well, anybody else want to say anything on the panel or anything? Well, with that, we will wrap it up. Brian Healy, we want to thank you immensely again for sending this up for us, just like you did with the form. We truly, CAC and T-Town truly appreciate all you do for us. Thank you, Brian.
My pleasure. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you very much. Thanks for having us.
Thank you so much, Dan and Fiona.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good to see you.
You guys were great.
Good. Thank you so much. And this is a close to our evening. Good night, everyone.
Good night.
Good night.
Good night. Take care.
Thank you. Thank you, Phyllis.
Okay, talk to you soon.
Yes. Thank you.